It's very, very safe to say that, well, good old Rishi Sunak, or Dishie Rishi, has had a very, very bad week. And it has proved to be an even worse weekend. Because obviously, the revelations, the two biggies, of course, have been his wife's revelation that she had non-dom status, which basically means she paid absolutely 0% tax. And of course, there have been a couple of other, shall we say, very nervous conservatives probably looking around going, oh, were we allowed to do that? So, needless to say, as I said just this morning, in fact, on the Good Morning Walk, probably expect a couple more revelations, possibly about a few more, shall we say, conservatives who are also non-doms, who haven't been paying tax. But needless to say, the other thing, of course, was we still don't know who the leaker was. I think the Sunday Times have come out and said that it's some sort of Labour mole in the Treasury called Red Throat. How true that is, I don't know, but needless to say, it's quite interesting. I have my own theories, of course. We went over sort of the suspect list, prime being, of course, Dominic Cummings, then Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Michael Gove, Penny Mordaunt. There is a number of people who would quite happily dish the dirt on Rishi to, shall we say, get ahead in their own political career. But almost certainly, both this revelation about his wife's non-dom status and, of course, the other revelation about the fact that he had a green card, which basically means he broke American US immigration law, because the way it was sort of explained to me by a couple of people on the Good Morning Walk, because again, I didn't know, if you have a green card, you're not allowed to work for a foreign government. And the problem is that Rishi Sunak has had one since 2015, basically meaning that he was Chancellor of the UK working for a foreign government while holding a green card. Think that's a bit of a problem. So, of course, I'd say probably more stuff to come out. There's rumors that apparently he's emptied his stuff from number 11. Who knows what could happen? By the end of the day, all I know, Rishi Sunak could have resigned by this video has come out. So expect the unexpected, as they say, and, a lot can happen in 24 hours in politics. But of course, on to see more of these revelations about him and his wife, and of course the fact that has he shaped tax rules to suit his own benefit, which is definitely a question we have to consider and, well, should be asked of him. So let's go into this article where it asks those questions and find out just how worrying it really is, should we say, to have a wife be the Chancellor of the Exchequer while she is a non-dom. So, as always, before we do this, jumping into the article, that is, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page where you can, well, support me on Patreon, or there's the one of today's link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, well, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do support me that way, as well as the YouTube subscriptions down below as well. So, as always, there we go. So, this comes from The Independent with the title of Rishi Sunak urged to explain whether he shaped tax rules for his own benefit. Like I say, needs to say the heat is well and truly being turned up on Rishi Sunak. Oh, hang on. There we go. So Rishi Sunak has been urged to provide full transparency over his family's tax arrangements and explain whether he helped to shape government finance rules to benefit his own interests. Again, absolutely should be investigated 100%. 100%. Opposition parties and campaigners have also called on the Chancellor to disclose links to Britain's overseas territories after the Independent has revealed claims that he was listed as a beneficiary of tax haven trusts. Again, if he's not put stuff down over on his declaration of interest, he's out the job. That's how it should be. He should be kicked out ASAP. And of course, Labour has also called on him to urgently clarify whether Teams helped shape tax rules through the recent Financial Act of 2022 to benefit wealthy investors with non-domicile status. And of course, Mrs. Sunak's standing among Tory MPs has been rocked after the Independent revealed that his wife, Alaska Munty, that's how you say it, holds a non-domicile status, although she has since said that she will pay UK taxes on all her worldwide income. A Whitehall probe is now underway to find out if any government officials or advisors provided her tax details. And of course, some Conservatives believe that this week's tax rows have damaged his chances of ever becoming Prime Minister. One saying his standing has certainly fallen, one senior Tory said. So he's out of the running now. I think now at the next, shall we say, Tory leadership contest, it's an open field. I generally cannot tell you because the two front runners, Liz and Rishi, have both had stuff happen to them very, very recently, which has just completely knocked them out of the running. And of course, the Independent understands that Mr. Sunak suggested to a contact in finance shortly before his spring statement that if he couldn't become Prime Minister, he might return to the industry before the next election. But a source close to Mr. Sunak said that Rishi has no intention of leaving politics. The Chancellor is understood to have moved his wife and his daughters out of the spotlight of Downing Street to their homes down in West London. And of course, Sir Keir Starmer's party said the scheme in the Financial Act of 2022 allowed the fund manager of non-DOMs to benefit by having to pay no tax on foreign earnings. We need reassurances that the Chancellor did not make any enormous breach by shaping tax policy to benefit his own personal finances, said a Labour spokesperson. He must answer these questions now and bring full transparency about his arrangements. Labour said that any trace of the Chancellor attempting to influence or relevant rules in the Financial Act of 2020 would constitute a serious breach of the ministerial code, which requires any prominent conflicts of interest to be disclosed. The government responded by defending the scheme, saying that the tax relief was given through the newly qualified asset holding companies, a regime which was only available to fund executives who manage portfolios on behalf of investors rather than individuals. This, of course, comes as transparency campaigners call on Mr. Sunak to explain whether or not he held any benefit from his wife's family or used trusts set up in overseas territories. Trusts in the British Virgin Islands and Cayman Islands created to manage the financial affairs of his wife's family's interests. Note that Mr. Sunak has been a beneficiary back in 2020, and according to the people familiar with her finances and documents seen by the Independent, we need to have clarity on these trusts in the nature of these trusts, said Paul Monaghan, the chief executive of the Fair Tax Foundation. And Mr. Monaghan pointed out to the government's efforts to boost transparency over wealth held in offshore entities through its very recent economic crime bill and ministers' promise of a second such bill in the next parliamentary session. He added that there is a potential question of conflict of interest for the Chancellor, and if he's made use of the trust in secret jurisdictions, then we need our looking at to get greater transparency and wipe away the veil of secrecy. Tax havens offer a very higher degree of financial security when companies are registered here or trusts are created as beneficiaries of companies. But the use of tax havens by the British residents is entirely legal, and there is no suggestion of legal wrongdoing, the spokesperson for Mr. Sunak has said. They, quote, did not recognise the claims on the use of tax havens, while his wife also denied to comment. The deepening row obviously comes as Mrs. Sunak could save at least 280 million in inheriting tax by holding onto a non-dom status. And tax expert Rupert Murphy said that Mrs. Sunak still had been able to avoid up to 280 million in inheritance tax because of a loophole created in a treaty between the UK and India dating back to the 1950s. Of course, Labour and the Liberal Democrats have called on her and what remains of her Indian citizen to pay back the taxes saved through not having to pay UK taxes on her overseas income. but it has been estimated that she has potentially saved up to £20 million in UK tax through the legal arrangements. Again, this is why we need to tax the rich, because that is a lot of money that can do a heck of a lot of good. Again, we can fund the NHS, we can build schools, we can fund schools, we can get some infrastructure spending done, we could build HS2, we could build the northern leg of it. The list goes on. There are also, of course, growing questions about Mr. Sunak's use of permanent US residency status after he admitted holding a US green card while he was Chancellor between February of 2020 and October of 2021. These are the new ones that have come out recently. And of course, there is no suggestion either that Mr. Sunak or his wife have broken any laws through their tax arrangements. However, on Saturday, the SNP did call Mr. Sunak to publish his tax returns for the period while he was an MP, and also held a green card to clarify whether or not avoided paying any tax in the UK. The Lib Dems Treasury spokesman, Christine Judden, said that Mr. Sunak must be transparent about his financial arrangements and answer the question that have they been paying the fair share. A senior G7 diplomat who is not British and who has worked with Mr. Sunak on efforts to improve the corporate tax transparency said that they would have preferred to know more about the potential conflicts of interest at play. When asked about the Financial Act of 2022, the government spokesperson said the relief period under the QCAZ regime has not been available to individual taxpayers and whether they are domiciled in the UK or not. It is only available to fund executives who manage portfolios on behalf of investors. So, of course, they added, obviously, bits about that, but you get the point. Sunak's in hot water. I think we get the point at this point. Sunak is in very, very hot water. There will probably be a parliamentary standards investigation. If there has been a serious breach, I don't know how far this will go. I don't think there'll be a police investigation, but ultimately, this is torpedo his chances of ever becoming prime minister. It will probably kill his political career, even if he stays in politics and just becomes, a coat on the many coat racks in the Conservative backbenches. Is highly possible. Needless to say, we don't know what happens from here. He could resign in the next 24 hours. There could be an investigation that, boots him out in the next 2 or 3 months. Who knows? But needs to say, as we've said before, where did these revelations come from? I'm just as interested as Mr. Sunak is about where these came from. But needless to say, we don't know where these come from. But the timing of them has been very, very convenient. And as I said yesterday and today on the Good Morning Walk, someone's out to get Rishi. Someone is definitely out to get Rishi. Question is who? And that opens up a whole can of worms, as we discussed on the Good Morning Walk. But as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and of course, if you are new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me a coffee. And of course, thank you very much for watching and tuning in. And of course, we'll see you all next time.